I believe people attract what they are. So we no longer find partners in business, friendship, and love to fill us. We find people who are whole, who are witnesses and walk and dance with us.
Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. This show is all about helping you connect to your soul's calling so you can take action on it. Because the sweetest success is a blend of discovering your purpose with the inner drive to bring it to life. I'm Sheila Botello, health coach, lifestyle entrepreneur, and mom of two, best known for my online wellness programs, mentoring, and self-love passion. Listen in for inspiring interviews, solo chats, and Q&A sessions that will move you past overwhelm towards what lights you up. Stop accepting good enough and go for your version of great in your health, business, and relationships. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to Interview Day on the podcast. I'm thrilled for you to meet today's guest. Natalie Fraser, or as some know her, Osa, has been working as a spiritual coach and facilitator for over 20 years. Her philosophy is to always be the student as well as the teacher. She perpetually continues her studies in Western modalities of counseling, along with ancient and modern healing practices from around the world. Natalie takes this approach in order to meet each client's needs, rather than the client being limited to one treatment method. As a result, if one approach does not work, she has another. Her work has taken her into offices, schools, hospitals, community groups, senior centers, and family homes, making her work universal and adaptable to all. She enjoys the challenges of finding out how to speak your language and listen to your needs. Her sole purpose is to give you the tools to help you heal yourself. Natalie and I met many years ago in school, and she has always had a depth to her that was beyond her years. Our conversation was deep and winding and filled with loving intention. Enjoy listening. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie. It has been so good to reconnect in the minutes leading up to this. I've been looking forward to diving into your story and the beautiful work that you're doing. And now I feel like I have even more questions. So welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor, truly.
So we went to high school together. We haven't seen each other in years and years. And yet here we are in this work of femininity, of connecting people to inner spirit. We're in basically overall wellness in many different facets. And I would love to know, what was the trajectory after high school? What led you into the work that you're doing now? Like some bullet points that took you into where you are now.
So just so you'll see smoke coming up in front of you. I'm just smudging right now. A little Palo Santo.
Lovely.
What brought me into this work was suffering and not being satisfied with the options that were presented in front of me, and loving life enough to figure it out.
Oh.
And so that was a beginning point at a very young age. Actually, at the beginning of high school, my first day, I walked up to the principal's office and said, either figure out how this can be better for me or I need to leave, because I went through a few classes. I found teachers in the smoking area, people who were not interested in teaching, a lot of unkindness. And So I went up, and actually the principal was amazing. And so my background also is in theater performance and directing, music, art. And so that was one of my lifelines as well. And also my greatest teachers in the work that I do now, because this learning about stories and archetypes, character, how to see what a person is and isn't is how you build a character as an actor. And then learning how to be confident is, you can't be an actor if you are bringing the fear onto the stage. It makes the character no longer be seen. And you have to know yourself so that you know what to take off before you start building onto a new character, or what to keep that is complementary to that character. So that was my beginning and learning ground for self-awareness, self-healing, self-help. on a spiritual level, from a very young age, my parents taught me to church hop. They were both from different faiths. And so they said, this is what I believe. This is what I believe. But you need to go out and figure out what you believe. And so they sent us going with different people and encouraged us to do it on our own, to be on a path. And my mom always had things like Khalil Gibran and Padma Chodron and different books lying around just for us to ask questions about that were completely different from what they were living. And so the inquiry into a spiritual path was there. And so that spiritual end came in. And then my first experience with being in love, my partner, he was studying computer science. We made music together. He played guitar. I sang. It was so idyllic. He went out one day and came back, and he had been injected with heroin. And we found a doctor, and the doctor couldn't help him at that time, but was, strangely enough, a medical doctor, a psychotherapist, an acupuncturist, and a healer. And he saw me and he said, I'm going to train you. Mm-hmm. And in the most unconventional way, he just started throwing clients at me and telling the people that what he was doing. And for 20 years, he did that with me and would throw books at me and trained me from outside of an institution, because he believed that any institutional piece of paper would limit my ability to cater to the individual instead of the individual catering to my philosophy of thought. Wow. So once again, I was asked to diversify. And so I did. I studied the Western modalities. And then later on, I became ill with an autoimmune disease and almost died. And no Western medicine could help me. And that was about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 2012. Yeah. And so I was already doing the work, but my cousin introduced me to a healer. And they said I might go into early Alzheimer's or slip into a permanent coma. And all the things they were trying was making me sicker. So I got on a plane to Peru. And 3 different healers healed me. Now, I'd been through nuclear testing, all the x-rays, MRIs, CT scans, blood work. So when I came back, my doctor was able to test me again. And he was blown away by the power of indigenous healing that he had not taken seriously because he didn't understand it. And so that I had already been working in First Nations culture. My first husband was an Algonquin. I was always intrigued by the culture and earth-bound person of believing in environment and caring for the earth and all the beautiful plants and animals and creatures, including humans, on this earth, and that we were to be stewards. And so then I started just expanding my Indigenous cultural research, and my primary place was Peru. And I've been back several times, and now I bring groups there. And throughout all the learnings, I have discovered that there's art, sports, or trouble, and that mind, body, and spirit cannot be separated. And also, you have a choice. You can go in any door; they all arrive at the same place, and that's you. So there's so many options for everybody. And I'm always a student. I feel that I cannot be a successful teacher if I am not always studying. Plus, I like studying.
It's evident, yes, from hearing the things that you're doing currently and the things that you have done. That is so beautiful. What an interesting foray into the world that you're working right now. The fact that someone saw in you the capability and had a vision for what could be for you. And also that you trusted yourself. You trusted the instinct to move forward, because many of us may not have that trust, right? Many of us may look at that and really doubt, because doubts can be so strong. So it's wonderful that I think it seems like you've always had that deep connection to yourself, as you explained what you did that first day of high school. That's pretty impressive. A grade 9 student going in and talking to the principle in such a way. And fortunately, being well received, like that was wonderful. But having that self awareness, that is not something that many people have at their root. So that's obviously been a guiding force for you.
Thank you. And at that time, and up until recently, it was all in a really naive and a place of innocence, really. And I see now that, and at where I stand now, I say knowledge is all the information that we take in from anywhere and anyone. Wisdom is what knowledge we've taken in and passed through our heart and then give back out. So I can share my wisdom with you, but for you, it's just knowledge. And what you do with it is your decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so I now consciously make those choices, but innately, it was a built-in survival mechanism that I just started at a very young age.
Yeah. Oh,
Unconsciously,
incredible.
it was just what I did.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you inherited some of that from the way you were raised to have that sense of what do you believe? You get to look at the options and you get to choose. Being empowered in that way is a wonderful thing because then you actually own it. All of us know people who were raised in a certain way, in a certain belief system. And whenever they've been questioned about, well, why do you believe what you believe? The answer is, well, it's just what we do. And there's no real heart connection sometimes.
Yeah.
So I've always said to my boys, like as I was talking to you earlier, my Jesus faith is something that I made personal when I was 14. That was the beginning of the journey. There's been a lot of twists and turns ever since. And in raising my boys, it's like, here's the path that I've been on. And here are all the other different things that you can look at because your faith needs to be your own. I can't tell you what to believe. Only you and your heart will know. There's, I think, a lot of fear around that in parenting sometimes. Often religion is used as a tool of control. I believe we need to have this awakening of spirit within ourselves that there is a deep knowing and understanding that is, as you said earlier, connected to love and connected to grace. And that is where the joy lies. It's not in like just following a rule book and checking off boxes. It is so much more embodied in that. And it's not about just saying, I know all of the things, but using, like you said, that wisdom. What does love in action look like? So
Well,
that's
honestly, I
wonderful.
think love is a state of being. I mean, we are love. We're all love. We're born of love, be love, see love, give love, receive love. That's my mantra.
Mm.
And I think the grace is the action. It's the
Oh,
rule
yes.
book. It's the
Mm.
playbook of love.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Wow. And your name is Natalie, and people call you, is it Osa?
Yes.
Tell me about
So
that.
um, my full spirit name is La Osa Pachamama. And actually, been given a couple of others, but Osa stuck.
Mm.
And the way I see it is I was born and given the name Natalie by my parents, and my being, my physical, my flesh suit self, that I is Natalie. My spirit, that fragment of the infinite particles of God that I am, has been named by those who see my soul, who see my spirit as Osa. And Osa is the feminine of bear in Quechuan and in Spanish. So I I am, my mother's last name is Beers, and the person who gave me my name did not know this, and that is Bear. And my daughter, her father's clan is Bear Clan.
Wow. That is
And
incredible.
so it all came together. And I all my life have been called like the mama bear. And so yes, I carry that medicine with me and was given that name. And then finally, the image when the teacher who gave it to me gave me that name, she said, in all the constellations in the sky, there is only one that does not move, and that is Ursa Major. Everything else moves around it. And she said, you are constant.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's how I came to be Osa. And I love the duality because we live in duality, right? So many people think that they need the death of the ego. The death of the ego is the death of the flesh. It's the end of flesh life. You're no longer in form. And our ego, I believe, is meant to be like our best friend. It's the and to be enjoyed. And one requires the other. I often like to joke that our body is the vehicle, our spirit is the passenger, and our ego is the driver. Mm-hmm. One needs the other in good condition in order to function.
Right, because there is such a thing as a healthy ego. I love how all those little connecting points to the meaning of the word as well. When you were named that, was there a special ceremony that happened during it, or was it just a conversation? How did that come about?
I'm a person who's not a strong believer in appropriation, which might be a shocking statement, but I believe there's respect and disrespect, and that we all learn through mimicking. So I do know, because I've studied in different Indigenous cultures, that there are some very strict rules in different groups on how a naming ceremony happens. But I believe that if it happens in good faith and it resonates with you, then that's the only person it matters to is you. My teacher just blurted it out one day. We were in the middle of session and it came to her, and as soon as she said it, my eyes filled with tears, and then she gave her reason, and then I told her my connections. And Pachamama, in the second part of it, Pachamama is what they call, some think of her as Mother Earth, like Gaia, or but it also in Peruvian culture is more than that. It's like it's the embodiment of all of it. And because she watched me being very earthy bound, but also on this spiritual journey, she thought Pachamama was, and again, the mama.
Oh, yes. It's that nurturing part of you. All of us have a different amount on the spectrum of that as well.
And then when I started feeling confident enough to say it, it became through practice that just the way people spoke it, people started just calling me Osa. Mm-hmm. And when I'm doing ceremony, or I am doing work in retreats, or one-on-one, if they choose, a lot of people choose to call me Osa. And but in the rest of my life, my corporate world and all of that, I celebrate being Natalie.
It's beautiful. You can celebrate both the skin suit and the soul, and sometimes hyphenating them both. I think that is part of the grace too, is just like being so open to the way things resonate with people as well. I love that you mentioned that about appropriation as well. When I think of cultural appropriation, there is that negative intent, in a sense, of someone who has not done the work, not been truly connected to a particular cultural experience and spiritual work, etc. And then there's the other side that is actually truly deep. You're on that soul journey and you're being brought under someone's wing in that culture. There's an authenticity to it. That's something I think so many of us are just unpacking and learning about as we walk in right relationship with each other. And I think the intent is everything. What are we wanting to resonate into the world? And if it's done in love, and the respect comes naturally.
Yeah. So my philosophy is that there's only fear or love, and fear is just love and resistance. Therefore, everything is love. And so anything that doesn't feel good is an expression of the ego's fear. And so anytime something doesn't feel good, and with my clients, they were violent, they were angry, they were dismissive, they were sarcastic, they were laughing inappropriately, they ghosted me. I said, anything that doesn't feel good is just fear and resistance, is just love and resistance. So it's their way. So it's just fear. Instead of writing a whole story, just know that that person is in fear, and all they need is to let go. And the way they're going to do that is by giving them love. Because if you give them back fear, you're going to play fear ping pong.
Right.
And it'll just perpetuate. And we see that so many places in this world.
We do. We do. And I feel like the fear is a tool of patriarchy, is a tool of colonization. Everything from the way we present ourselves in the world, the way we look, our socioeconomic status, our goals, our education, all of it, there's often fear at the root. What if you don't get top marks? What if you don't get into this great school?
The
What if,
enough
what if, what
factor.
if? And it's like, well, wait a second. Let's slow down here and let's focus on love. What is your soul telling you you need to be doing? Listen to that. And when you
Well,
really follow it, then that's where the magic happens.
I remember being young and people saying to me, follow your heart, listen to your heart. And it took me a long time. Like I got it, but I didn't get it. I go, how do you do that? So I finally figured it out that the voice of the heart is a knowing.
Yeah.
It's a sense. It's like mom arm, right?
Yeah, mom arm.
There's no story. It's an automatic, and it always feels good. Like even if it's a difficult decision, when I finally decided to leave my husband, it was a loving act, and it felt like I cried, but I knew the tears were of release and knowingness, and I knew everything that came after that was a story I'd written around it.
Yes.
Right. And so the voice of the heart is not words. It's a sensing, and it feels good. Everything else is of the ego, and it's just bringing you back to your heart. It's telling you you've got off the path, you're steering left, come on back in. And there's lots of adventures to have out in fear. But some people say fear is what you need. It protects you. And I've done a lot of thinking about that too. Fear used to be only talked about as fight or flight, but we know that with deer, it's fight, flight, or freeze, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're in danger, I mean, I don't know that I ever want to fight. I can see the value sometimes in the three of them. But I think the strongest I can ever be is if I'm in my heart. Because when I'm in my heart, I know what to do.
Yes.
It's like being in the Matrix, all slow motion-y.
Yeah. Oh, and you mentioned those other things, freeze, and then I believe there's appease and fawn as well. And I think freeze, so many people I talk to, particularly women, so relate to that one. The freeze of, can I move forward? Can I shine? Can I actually go for what I want? Because culturally, it's not been safe for women over the years, particularly racialized women in different cultures. And so
super grateful that I got to walk that path to be able to be a trailblazer.
Yes. And to know that you went through this experience and you were able to come through the other side with love being the force instead of the fear, because as you say, it's informed your work. Oh, and I think as a result, in looking more deeply at some of the offerings that you have and the work that you're doing, I feel like we share a reverence for feminine rhythms and cyclical wisdom and nature and how they all connect in the tapestry of our lives. In your work that you do, in your retreats, what are some of the key things you touch on relating to nature and feminine wisdom? And do you work predominantly with women, or do you work with a whole range of people?
So I work with a whole range of people, and that's been another part of my study, is not just culturally and spiritually, but working diversely through different abilities and ages, so that I am, like you said, as informed as possible. But I am an advocate of men. And I believe that, Jesus is a great example. When I talk about Jesus, I say, when people are up at night and they can't sleep, I say, look at it like a vision quest. What a vision quest is like when Jesus went out into the desert and like there's nothing, there's no water, there's no food. And it's only when you get into that state where you are without all of the frills and you allow yourself to be completely in exposure, like Outward Bound when they send the kids out in the week, right? And you build your own little shelter and all you have is a bit of water. And it was in that place of letting go of attachment that all that was able to come in could come in. And what Jesus has that I think allowed him to do that was the perfect balance of the healthy feminine and the healthy masculine. Because I see, like my earrings here are actually spirals, and this is actually Pachamama herself. That's the feminine. It's circuitous, it's nurturing, it's emotional, it's creative, but it doesn't have motion. It is of the right brain. It's of spirit. It is the closest to God. And the masculine is the closest to the ego, to the physical. It's linear and it's action. And I've worked with a few women's groups where they don't accomplish anything because they're so deep in the feminine at the cost of the masculine.
Yeah.
And so they don't do anything other than talk a lot and feel and share, but they're not actually following through on their projects. And so I spend a lot of time working with my clients on balancing and understanding, especially with the gender becoming such a beautiful change now. Like, what is man? What is woman?
Right.
And then relationships, how they've changed in our lifetimes, from our grandparents to our parents to us to what our kids will be. I mean, how do we define culture, roles? And so I'm definitely exploring the healthy masculine and feminine and helping people understand what the unhealthy masculine and feminine is. And so that when they create that in themselves, I believe people attract what they are. So we no longer find partners in business, friendship, and love to fill us. We find people who are whole, who are witnesses and walk and dance with us.
Yes. That I
So
love.
there's no more codependence.
Yes. Which is so big. That term, I think people really relate to. I love that you shared that about the spiral not being active. That's a very interesting point. And yes, we so need that balance of both. In our times now, we're seeing the rise of the feminine, which is really beautiful. And it's easy, though, to take it too far in a sense, just like it has been easy to take the masculine too far, where it's been devoid of that nurturing connection to nature, connection to source. And so being able to, being able to bring them together. I mean, that is the intention. And yes, Jesus uplifting women to the rightful place, involving them in the ministry.
I believe, that I love, yes. But also, I believe the reason why Jesus was able to create miracles was because he had finally balanced a healthy masculine and feminine. And in my practice, I have similar experiences, things that people would consider miracles that happen with me. And it's only when I am in that state of healthy masculine and feminine that the divine speaks through me. And that, so when Jesus said, I am the Son of God, I believe it was like, this is cool. Like, I am the Son of God. And all of us, we are the sons and daughters of God. We can all do this. I am the example of the intention and potential of being a human being.
What does humanity look at its finest?
There it is.
There it is.
I think he nailed it.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's the one thing, like, regardless of where people come from in their belief systems, that's the one thing I don't know if I can even recount a conversation with someone who didn't have a deep respect or thinking, hey, he was a pretty cool figure in history. I don't know anyone who hasn't, like, all across the board of different cultures. And I talk to a lot of people. I'm living in Toronto area, standing on a lot of soccer field sidelines with all different types of cultures of men and women, parents. And the concept of Jesus comes up and it's like, oh, there is that respect that he was different. And so it's so beautiful to see that. And now, as you and I were talking earlier, and we were talking about your history and how you've come to where you are, you mentioned the word wipeouts. And it is such a fun spin on what can be so challenging. So tell us about wipeouts, and also, what's a hurdle that you've had to come over in your life, whether it's been in your professional or personal journey, and what has helped you most get over it? I have a feeling I know what the answer is going to be, but I'd love for you to talk about that.
One of the beautiful people who come into this world is Brené Brown, and she is an author and a speaker. And one of her books is if you bring it all down into one sentence, is life is a bumpy path, we fall down, get up. The end.
Yeah.
But I love that she had written it in a book, but I believed this for a long time, that the path is not straight and it doesn't have an arrival point. It is eternal.
Yes.
And if anything, we spiral in and out like layers of an onion. But what we need to do in order to succeed, life, there is no arrival at full-time happy. We live in diversity. We live in duality. I don't believe in separation, but I do understand. I like people to understand the parts of the whole, like a rainbow. Red is red, orange is orange, yellow is yellow. Get to know each one individually, but they cannot be a rainbow unless they're connected. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was where its foundation is for me. My falling down and getting up. I fall down and get up every day, right? We all do. And I've learned to fall better. Yeah. And when I was a figure skater, when I was younger, I got the cushion award from loving to keep pushing myself and not worrying about falling down. So that's actually where it started for me, was the cushion award. They gave me this big trophy and a Bambi. And another great faller downer
yeah.
who kept getting back up. And I also worked with special needs people with autism and Down syndrome. And Down syndrome people walk leaning forward, often with their hands out. And why? So does a toddler, because it's easier to fall. And I always notice that. And little people fall better because they're closer to the ground. And with my children, I always thought, it's better to teach them how to fall now because they're closer to the ground. If I wait till they're older, they're going to fall harder and not as well. So it's always been an analogy in my life. And then having the right people around you to get back up, because you might want it to be your partner. When I fall down, I want you to be my knight. Come and grab me by the back seat of the pants and pull me on the horse. And I always said to my husband, it doesn't mean that you're the only one. If you fall down, I'll come grab you by the seat of the pants and bring you on the back of my horse too. Yeah. You may be king, but I am queen, right?
Yeah.
But so learning to diversify my network of helpers and knowing who was good at what, who will sit in the mud with me, who will keep six and keep people away from me while I decide to mindfully have my fit and go have tea with my monsters. And who knows when I've been in it too long and is just going to not listen to me and drag me out. And who's going to just say everything's going to be okay. And there are different people in my life who are better at that and not so good at it. And instead of being in judgment of them, I've diversified my group. And I also know well enough when to know that even if this person is the person I would normally call, if they're in their own mud heap, that's not fair for me to ask them. Mm-hmm. So big falls have been sexual assault, ending marriages, abuse. And, those big falls informed my life. Mm-hmm. They became my ability to deepen my compassion and empathy in this world. And in my therapy, it is always talking about wipeouts and getting up, so that even those dark things that we consider so dark, you can cry and laugh at the same time. We're always finding analogies to say, so you fell down. Mm-hmm. You want some help getting back up? You want me to sit with you? Using simple, playful analogy and metaphor and imagery is a lot of what I do in my work. That's the way I navigate that. If I were to say one recently, I was rejected from a place that I was working, and they wouldn't tell me why. And I'm self-employed, but I've been there for a long time and I love it there. And I fell down. I cried. I was so hurt. My feelings were deeply hurt, but I grew. I didn't reach out to and plead with them or try and reason with them. I just let it be. And I went to my people and said, I need to sit in the mud. I just need to cry this out. I know everything's going to be okay, because I do also turn to my faith. And when I turn to my faith, then also I get all the variations of hugs and tugs that I need as well. But by being in grace in it, by keeping it about my process of my fault, not making it that it's their fault. They pushed me in the mud. I said, this situation, I because everybody always has a choice to choose whether to take something personally, right? We always have that split second. And I chose to let it hurt. There was something for me to learn. And I learned a thing sitting in the mud. I learned that it's good not to chase, because what happened was when I gave it room to breathe, knowing and evaluated that I actually had done nothing wrong, then I got 3 consecutive letters of retraction, pleading for me to come back.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to be mindful of how I navigate that world, because they're in a vulnerable state. And so I need to be mindful. But, there was a place where I fell and I got back up before the letters, right? I got back up in myself, regardless of the work. The work was not the matter. And I think a lot of people make other the matter, and it's never about the other. The matter is always in here. I say to my clients, when you do this, you got one finger pointing out, one finger that doesn't know what the heck it's doing, and 3 pointing back at you. What do you think the right course of action is? Look in.
Yes.
Because yes, there is truth that something happened with the other, but you can't change someone else.
Right. Right. What a beautiful lesson. And to know, again, have that awareness and the ability to go within and have that open-heartedness to say, what is the truth? And how did I impact the situation? And did I, and in my knowing? And sometimes had you not received those letters of retraction, it's sitting in the knowledge that you will never know. And being
Which is okay too,
because you did the work of being okay with it and saying, okay, I'm going to choose to learn from this situation. And I know in my own life too, various ups and downs and really traumatic events that you witness or experience, there is always something to be learned. There is always still that experience of knowing that you are still here. So there's still a purpose in your life. There's something next. It's like, okay, this ended. What's next? It could be better.
Well, that's it. I believe it always is. Everything. One of my teachers says, "Isn't it true that everything always works out?" And if you actually think about it, it's true. Yeah, it does. Because here I am. Here we are. It did all work out. And and I've had many falls where I was wrong, and I like being wrong. I mean, it pinches.
Yeah.
And burns sometimes. No, not to feel comfortable, but I always learn a thing. I always grow. And I approach suffering that way. I don't believe anything that is put before us on this earth is for us to suffer, is for us to learn something or remember something. And I love that word, remember. Remember, put things back together. Sometimes things have to fall apart because they weren't put together correctly in the first place. And so the coming apart is an opportunity to rebuild, and with a new eye of design.
Wow. I feel like, we have already talked for a long time, even before hitting record. I feel like I could spend so many more hours just deep in this world of conversation. It's just so good, so rich. I would love, Natalie, for you to share with all of this, with all your experience, what is the big vision for your life's work? Like, what's next? What do you hope for? What do you plan for and dream for in your life and in your work?
My dream is always to be in service to love. And to do that in co-creation with people, because I love co-creating, and to do that as broadly as I can, to help as many as I can, to share with as many as I can, to inspire as many as I can.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I could get into the actual specifics of how I'm going to do that, but that's the general.
Great. Natalie, this has been an incredible pleasure. Thank you for sharing all of this, sharing your story, sharing the depths of your heart with us today. I would love for you to share what's coming up in your work and your offerings that people can participate in. And also, please share where everyone can find and follow you.
Okay. Thank you for that, by the way. So in social media, you can find me at Osa Natalie Fraser on Instagram and Facebook. I have two websites because I'm learning about technology right now, and I'm transitioning from one to the other. But I have my Momentum, that's spelled moment-m.ca website that lists a lot of my services. And then my newest one, which is everything switching over to, which is my nataliefraser.ca website. And I have a program that I run called Unedited Woman. That's starting in December each year. But I do run personal 3-month apprenticeships for people to figure out how to find their own spiritual path. And a lot of my work is designed around learning how to overcome trauma and triggers, and to learn life skills to fill their toolbox for moving forward. I do a monthly free call, and you can find out about it on my Facebook. It's free. And I do in-person gatherings when Mother Nature permits it, with all of these timeouts that she's giving us right now. And I have 2 retreats locally here in Wakefield at Gaia Retreat Wellness Center. One is for a refresh retreat in February, and another is for couples tune-up at the beginning of March. I go in destination retreats as well. And I do one-on-one counseling, Reiki, massage, sound healing and sound bath, meditation, yoga, basically. And then I do marriages, baptisms, funerals. It's beginning to end process. Some people say, what do you do? I say, I'm a messenger of love. And all I do is spend. My father said to me when found out I wasn't going to be a lawyer, he said, fine, figure out what you love to do and make money at it. And so I consider it energetic exchange in my journey into self-awareness. As many opportunities as I have to pay it forward, enjoy, I do.
Beautiful. That's great advice from your father, smart man.
His other was, anytime you think you're absolutely right, you're absolutely wrong, which keeps me curious.
Oh, yes. Curiosity is so important. Let's just keep getting curious, because it keeps us from stopping the growth process, stopping learning, and it keeps us from the judgments, because ultimately there's a reason for everything. So I love that. We're going to link all of that in the show notes, Natalie. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Sheila. Keep doing this beautiful work you're doing.
Thank you. And for all of those who are listening, thank you for tuning in. What thought or idea came up for you as you listened today? I would love to hear, and Natalie would love to hear as well. So please tag us on Instagram to let us know. It's a beautiful way to thank her for all that she shared today. Big blessings. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Connect podcast. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you think would enjoy it. Also, if you head over to iTunes to leave a review, I'd be so grateful. Let us know what your favorite parts were and what you'd like to hear more of. It will help us have a greater impact, elevating many more people to grow and succeed together. See you next time.